你看见讲翁仔某两个人愈来愈无爱讲话，因为以后我感觉我无爱讲啊，我无爱讲啊，所以足侪人活伫囝内面，阮先生要转来啊，伊转来看到我呢，一定会生气。这种婚姻就是一种尴尬，你知无？就是尴尬啊！因为本来我咧生气，阮先生会当知，即马变成讲我唔敢互阮先生知。迄个亲密关系本来是足真切的情绪，但是到最后呢，这个亲密关系到最后已经变做讲是充满了惊。迄个到最后一种亲密的关系是，互两个人之间唔敢讲真话，会怎互一个人变做将家己怎封起来，你知哦？敢将家己关起来，将家己的情绪放喺冰箱内底，唔敢甲人分享，也唔敢表达。所以这种情形，当然对亲密关系对翁仔某来讲。迄就变做是一种伤害啊！所以咱一定要知影讲，要安怎样来处理咱的情绪。婚姻都是一个互你真实的情绪表达的一个所在。婚姻都是互一个人会当真正做伊家己，唔免伫别人的面头前爱搁假。婚姻就是你唔免互别人爱欢喜，唔免讨好别人，这才是真正的婚姻。但是真可惜。即摆足侪婚姻，因已经无即个功能啊！即摆足侪婚姻到最后，即个先生太太之间，因两个人的感情呢，变做讲我真实的感受，我连伫你的面头前，我嘛无想要讲啊，就冷淡结冰。即摆结冰了，无感觉啊！翁仔某之间讲，我即摆对伊拢已经无感觉啊。为什么？因为以前谈恋爱的时阵，伊足爱听我讲；以前谈恋爱的时阵，伊拢会听我讲。即摆，好啊，讲煞袂，好啊，好啊，即马变做足冷淡，即马敢若足好甲嫌，即马足讨厌我，所以当然两个人的距离就愈来愈远啊，两个心之间愈来愈远，愈来愈远。所以婚姻想到哪会破裂？因为对方的感受你感觉袂到，因为你的感受你也无想要甲对方讲，这就是婚姻破裂的开始。会行到这个地步。其实是因为咱唔知影要安怎面对咱的心情，是因为咱无了解咱家己，是因为咱规个成长的背景中间，咱拢只有会当接受好的，无法度接受无好的，这是足大的一个危机。所以希望所有朋友你搁一摆定心来思考啦你做人的先生，做人的太太你敢有温存又有情绪？咱做父母，你敢有温存你的囡仔踮厝会当有情绪？就是讲伊生气的时阵，你会当莫受伊影响，你就甲家己讲伊咧生气啊，迄是伊的代志，无要紧，伊咧生气，伊咧生气咱家己关心，讲你是安怎？有的人毋是讲伊咧生气，伊的代志我电视我才看，你要去你房间去你莫踮遮搞乱你讲这种话，就是人本来是细拍火的尔，你说汽油倒落，当然愈大拍嘛，伊有伊的情绪，但是你要感受到伊，你也会晓去帮助伊、关怀伊。婚姻若无互相关怀、相互感觉，这种婚姻绝对死。后一集继续收看老三的节目。
阿姨，10两倍。
都可以。
我甲你警告，我今仔日心情无好，你莫甲我讲话哦。我阁甲你警告，我最近心情非常的歹，你莫甲我黑白哭扫哦。我即摆阁讲一遍，我心情非常的歹，唔通黑白当。你若黑白当，我的磁场会地震动，心情会更较歹。你嘛免安尼逐工敢会晓看报纸，人伫心情歹，你也袂晓敢讲一句话。做人唔通安尼啦，迄看人心情若无好。大家厝边隔壁妈妈可是好朋友，怎么免安慰一下？
世间哪有一种人吼，愈想愈气。
你即马讲话，这是什么口气？你甲我讲看卖，你即马讲话这是什么口气？
莫名其妙，我无食呀。
哎呦，你也莫想看卖，你是阿免的，你哪会个对我讲话这样的？
哦，做人他呢，一个人冤。哦，
我无想要话，我一世人嘛捌听过你讲话，对我是这款口气。
老卡姨呀，我拜托你好无？
哈，
只要是人，拢会有情绪啦。吼，你家己心情歹，你就莫来惹人。像你拄只呢哦，连狗都惊你啦，哈，莫讲是我哦，吼。
哎呦，你讲话安尼这呢也无天良着，讲甲我敢若足歹斗阵的。其实观众朋友啊，你嘛拢知影，对无？我以前环球小姐第2名的时阵，迄那人水，佫是身材佫好，人讲。我连生气的时阵，嘛越来越可爱哟。
真正不落呢，迄真正迄脾气咧变吼，敢若天气共款。拄只风台即嘛甲我出阵啊，吼，我心情看了敢若足好安尼。
莫怪，正经的，你著讲话吼好听，吼我听了吼足爽的，足爽快。哎呦，即摆我心情非常的好，来啦。嘿，再两个啊。行，我即摆心情足好诶，咱来洗锅。你请我食饭，安尼好无？
为什么伊若心情好，变做我心情歹？这种人的功力有够厉害的啦！
消息：曙光中，当云雾从山谷缓缓散去时，新竹尖石乡的泰雅原民文化，在锦屏大桥的衬托下，显得更醒目了。新竹尖石的泰雅族以20户以下为一个部落的分布，沿着溪谷建落在半山腰。由于地形辽阔，山地部落中教会就有30多间。有人笑称在尖石乡，其实有3多。不仅桥梁多，派出所多，就连教会也特别多。在部落中，我们发现爱是有传染性的。面对现实生活，原住民营造一个爱与喜乐的环境，彼此帮补，让人感受到真正的快乐，不在于得到，还有付出与分享。圣经上说，施比受更有福，让我们在施与受的互动中，不断体验爱的流动，让生活充满感谢与赞美。我凡事给你们做榜样，叫你们知道应当这样劳苦，扶助软弱的人，又当纪念主耶稣的话，说施比受更为有福。使徒行传20章35节。好消息，与您一同用美爱台湾。
该假如弄落去，因为是很热，还要去两边要转来时间了。假如是你到考外是年年的，其实我信仰和鼓励的做生意啦。何时清楚而有本人，那你喊人家讲到时差呀，吼，你 风沙时，我哋客家人嚟每得。
接下来所收看的是空中英语教室。
Where do you go when you want to know what's new to do and who is who?
Studio Classroom is the place to be.
Come along and you will see connecting is the thing to do. Give your life a different view.
You can learn and you can share with people living everywhere.
Studio Classroom, the place to learn.
The place to grow.
Stay tuned and watch the show. Hello and welcome to Studio Classroom. My name is Gabe.
And I'm Carolyn.
And thank you for joining us for today's lesson. It's called Beyond Bali. I don't know if you've been to Bali before, Indonesia. There is a very famous island there called Bali, but you can explore more than just Bali. Well, we're going to learn more about this, and our lesson talks about a lot of different interesting places that have interesting scenery and very interesting animals. Of course, one animal we already learned about was the Komodo dragon. But Carolyn, have you ever seen anything else like this? Maybe an unusual or special place that had beautiful scenery or interesting animals?
Well, it's interesting that the article is called Beyond Bali because when I was in Bali, I went hiking and there was a beautiful cliffside view and there were monkeys everywhere. So it was great for taking pictures, and there were all of these monkeys, which was something I really wasn't used to seeing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be used to that either. I think some interesting scenery that I saw, some beautiful scenery, was in Yosemite, California. Just landscape that is unlike anything I've ever seen before. When I went to visit Australia, I saw these big birds called the cassowary. They're quite dangerous, but quite colorful too. Very interesting. Well, we're going to learn all about some interesting things that Linda saw beyond Bali. Let's get started with the first part of our reading for today.
Beyond Bali. Explore the land of Komodo dragons. When thinking of an Asian vacation, many consider Bali, Indonesia, the beautiful island paradise. However, why stop there? An hour's flight southeast will land you on Flores, Bali before the tourists. Last fall, my husband and I went. After landing, we sailed to Komodo National Park. Declared a World Heritage Site in 1986, the park consists of 3 major islands, Komodo, Rinsa, and Padar, and various smaller ones. We visited during the dry season, so the islands were brown and barren.
Well, let's get started. Beyond Bali, we read that first sentence says, explore the land of Komodo dragons. So we learned all about Komodo dragons yesterday. Now we're talking about where they live. Where they live. Explore the land of Komodo dragons. How do we start here, Carolyn?
We see, when thinking of an Asian vacation, many consider Bali, Indonesia, the beautiful island paradise. And a lot of people do think about going to Bali in Indonesia. I have been there myself. Have you been to Bali, Gabe?
I have not been to Bali. I have not been anywhere else in Indonesia, although I am looking forward to going so I can try their cow lung. Of course, you remember a few days ago, Carolyn said that she tried some cow lung in Indonesia. Well, I'm sure there's many things to do in Indonesia. But, however, why stop there? That means why stop at Bali? Of course, Bali is the most famous place, right, Carolyn?
That's right, and it is a very popular destination for many who want to take an Asian vacation. But an hour's flight southeast will land you on Flores, Bali before the tourists. So if you want to go to a place that has less tourists than Bali, you could go to Flores. And we see this word land, and it's kind of an interesting way to use this word, Gabe.
Yeah.
Can you explain it a little?
Yeah, it says that the flight lands you on Flores. So usually you think about maybe you're on an airplane and the airplane is landing, but here it's landing you at a certain destination. You could say the flight landed us in Taipei, but I also want to use this word in a slightly different way. Of course, maybe if you're a student and you're in class, you want to have a good attitude. Your teacher might say, you better be careful or your bad attitude might land you in the principal's office. That means because of this, because of your attitude, you will be at that place. So it will land you there.
That's right. So it can be used many different ways. And continuing, we see last fall, my husband and I went. So Linda, who wrote this article, went to Flores with her husband. And I think we have something to learn with Ken and Steve in the information cloud.
As a traveler, how do you get a true taste of a foreign culture?
You can do what the author of today's article did and get off the beaten path. In other words, don't go to a place where there are already thousands of foreigners. Visit a place where there aren't so many tourists around.
That's right. Getting off the beaten path means more excitement and more adventure.
Okay, another way to get a true taste of a new place, go behind the scenes.
Now, behind the scenes normally means not known or meant to be known by the general public.
So if you go on a behind-the-scenes tour in a museum, a TV studio, or at a historic landmark, you will see and learn things that most others won't.
Of course, you should expect to pay more for a behind-the-scenes tour, but often it's worth it.
And now for the truest taste of a local culture, you must go native.
I like this one. You do this by going to a foreign country or faraway city and adopting the lifestyle and attitudes of the local people. A true taste indeed, but going native is not always easy to do.
我们去国外旅游要如何才能融入当地的人文风情？我们可以像今天这一课的作者一样 ，get off the beaten path。这个片语字面上是离开一般人常走的路，意思呢就是走比较冷门、不寻常的路线。我们可以说他和他先生 got off the beaten path， 飞到一个还保存着开发前的原始风貌的岛上。我们来到一个地方呢，也可以试图 go behind the scenes。这个片语表示幕后的、秘密的、不公开的，所以一个 behind the scenes tour 就是一个一般游客无法前往的幕后探索。另外 go native 就是入乡随俗，采取当地人的生活方式。这就是今天的 Info Cloud， 我们下次云端见。
Well, if you are a traveler, you want to have a true taste of where you are visiting. Let's continue with our lesson. After landing, we sailed to Komodo National Park. Well, Komodo National Park, it sounds like there are probably lots of Komodo dragons there. Isn't that right?
That's right. This is one of the few places in the world that you can find Komodo dragons is in Komodo National Park. And we see declared a World Heritage Site in 1986, the park consists of 3 major islands, Komodo, Rinsa, and Padar, and various smaller ones. So the park has 3 islands, and it was declared a World Heritage Site. Now let's take a look at this word declared. If you declare something, then you make it official. you name it something officially. How can you use this word, Gabe?
Well, usually I think of the courtroom when I think of this word declare. Someone is declared innocent or someone is declared guilty. In much of the world, people are innocent until proven guilty. And then after a trial or two, then you find out if they're really innocent or not. They are declared innocent or declared guilty. That's right, it becomes official.
That's right, and we see that Komodo National Park was declared a World Heritage Site. So it's a very special place, very unique in the world that it is able to get this name, a World Heritage Site.
And maybe you want to go online and look up World Heritage Sites, and you can see a list of other places in the world that are very valuable contributions, very important places. Well, we continue learning from Linda. We visited during the dry season, so the islands were brown and barren. All right, so if the rainy season was when they visited, then maybe it would be a little more green. But Carolyn, we see here that the ground was barren. What does that mean?
Well, if something is barren, then it's empty. There's nothing there. And many times I think of maybe a field is barren after the crop has been harvested and brought in.
All right, a field might be barren. Nothing is there. And of course, these islands were brown and barren. That means maybe she felt like things were kind of dead, like there was very little life there. So maybe if they visited during the rainy season, they would see a lot more green. Who knows? Well, we're going to continue learning something right now with Michelle in the Language Lab, and then we'll take a break.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle。这篇文章的第一个重点，我们来看 declare 这个动词。declare 是指宣布或宣称。例如 ，the entrepreneur declared his intention to become the #1 smartphone company。这位企业家宣告他想要成为智慧型手机的龙头。它的名词是 declaration。declaration 意思是指宣言、公告或者是声明。例如 ，the declaration by the president ignited the war between the two countries。总统的宣言燃起了两国间的战争。其实我们看的是 barren 这个形容词 ，barren 是指荒芜的或不毛的。例如 ，the barren field cannot grow anything， 这个不毛之地长不出任何的东西来，或者是 irrigating this barren area will require construction of a complicated watering system。要灌溉这片荒芜的地区，需要建构复杂的供水系统。barren 也指无效的或者是无用的。例如 ，the artist became depressed during his barren years。这位艺术家在他无法创作的那几年变得很沮丧。
家庭是上帝所设立的，上帝看亚当独居不好，就造一个配偶帮助他，然后把这个家庭放在一个非常美丽的园子，叫伊甸园。上帝希望人在这样美丽的园子里头可以孕育下一代，可以享受家庭的生活。
但是仇敌要破坏幸福的家庭，媒体也是各方面的负面的报道。
我们不婚，我们不生，不养，不教。
家庭现在已经是支离破碎，现在家庭已经在风雨飘摇的中间，随时都会崩溃。
我们期待在4月28号，我们全台10万个人，我们一起站出来，
来守护你我的家，来守护台湾的家庭。
第一句话就跟我说：“简老师，我要跟我先生离婚。现在没有外遇，没有暴力，太太也没有外遇，我就搞不懂为什么呢？我想第4个就不用问了，是不是你打你先生？”他马上就回应了：“简老师，我先生人很好，问题就出在他人太好。”
很多人都会想说要就是求印证，然后来选择对象。
我以前谈恋爱被抛弃过3次，3个抛弃我的。
每周五晚上8点，幸福学堂准时开课。
备忏跟祷告有什么不一样？
他又告诉你说，你要透过你自己不断的消业障，这么多的义工，这么多的付出，这么多的捐献，可以解决我什么问题？他没有解决我的问题，我的问题依然存在。
Today we are learning about things to do in Indonesia beyond Bali, beyond this popular tourist destination. If you fly just an hour, a plane can land you on Flores. And if you continue, you can go to the Komodo Dragon Park, the Komodo National Park, which was declared a World Heritage Site. And if you go during the dry season, it might be a little bit barren, not much there, but it's still very interesting, and we will find out more of what Linda and her husband did in the second part of our article today.
Beyond Bali. Our first stop was Rinsa, home to about 1,300 Komodo dragons. The warnings were clear. Stay with your park guide. Don't wander off the path. Keep 5 meters away from the dragons. As we explored, we came across many Komodo dragons and even tracked one as it lumbered along. From Rinsa, we sailed west and anchored near Komodo Island. The next morning, we toured the island on foot. Again, we came across lots of wildlife, dragons, deer, and water buffalo. And in one valley, many cockatoos flew about, filling the air with raucous calls.
Sounds like Linda and her husband were having an interesting time so far. We read our first stop was Rinsa, home to about 1,300 Komodo dragons. Wow. Seems like maybe they'd be hiding in the bushes. You never know where these Komodo dragons might be. I said 1,300. Is there another way to say that number, Carolyn?
There is. You could also say it is home to 1,300 Komodo dragons. So there are many ways to read that number in English.
That's right, and we find out that this is home to these Komodo dragons. That means they're comfortable there. This is where they're used to. They're home. This place is home to Komodo dragons. Well, Linda says the warnings were clear. And what were the warnings?
The warnings were, stay with your park guide. Don't wander off the path. Keep 5 meters away from the dragons. So very, very clear warnings because Komodo dragons are very dangerous animals.
That's right. Well, 5 meters. I am about 6 feet. That's about 2 meters. I think maybe 2.5 times my height. You know, Carolyn, that doesn't really seem very far away. I mean, I wouldn't want to be that close to the dragons.
I think I would try to stay more than 5 meters away from the Komodo dragons.
That's right. You do want to be careful around these Komodo dragons. Well, Linda continues, as we explored, we came across many Komodo dragons and even tracked one as it lumbered along. Well, I would definitely want the tour guide there with me if I was doing that. Let's take a look at that word. It is lumber. And if something is lumbering along, that means it's moving along, but I get kind of a sense of maybe something is heavy or kind of awkward. It's not smooth, it's kind of lumbering along. How might you use that word?
Yes, this word lumber, it does mean that something very heavy is moving slowly, perhaps not very smoothly, and a lot of times I think of maybe an elephant would lumber along. If it's not running, just walking, side to side, it kind of lumbers.
That's right. It lumbers along. If you talk about a human, you might say they trudge somewhere, T-R-U-D-G-E. But usually I think of animals, big heavy animals, as lumbering along. Well, we're talking about these Komodo dragons, and I think it will be very interesting to see some in the wild and even maybe track some as they lumber along. But I wouldn't want to get too close. How does the article continue, Carolyn?
Well, we see from Rinsa, we sailed west and anchored near Komodo Island. So they left the island of Rinsa and anchored near Komodo Island. So another one of the islands, and we see this word anchored, and that means that they must have taken a boat. They took a boat from one island to the other and anchored at Komodo Island. Can you explain this word a little more, Gabe?
Yeah, anchor. Usually I think of it as a noun. A big ship might have an anchor. You toss it into the ocean, and then it keeps the ship steady. It keeps it there. It is anchored. But of course, here we see it as a verb. They sailed west and anchored near Komodo Island. So it's the same idea. They're stopping at a place so that they're stable and not moving. The ship is not moving. It is anchored.
That's right. And we continue. The next morning, we toured the island on foot. So they walked around the island on foot, not taking a car or any other form of transportation. Do you think this is a good way to see the island, Gabe?
Actually, that's a good question. And yeah, I think it's a great way to see the island because then you're not going too quickly. You can catch more things. You won't miss as many things. So they're going on foot. Well, we continue. Again, we came across lots of wildlife, dragons, deer, and water buffalo. And then what happened next? Well, we came across lots of wildlife. So these are some words we want to talk about. When you come across something, that means you encounter it. Maybe you didn't plan on it. Maybe you did, but it crossed your path. How might you use that phrase?
Well, you might say, I came across some amazing food when I was traveling on Komodo Island. Or I came across a very interesting creature when I was hiking in the woods.
That's right. Or I might say, I came across an interesting newspaper article about the Komodo National Park. So you can come across different things in different ways. Well, our article continues. In one valley, many cockatoos flew about, filling the air with raucous calls. Yes, cockatoos can be described as raucous. Carolyn, have you seen cockatoos before?
Well, I have in a zoo, and they are very noisy. They make these raucous calls, and raucous just means to be very, very loud and noisy. It's really not a pleasant sound.
That's right, and raucous is a good word to know from our word bank. It's a good word to describe these cockatoos as well. It's kind of annoying, an annoying noise. So cockatoos definitely make annoying noises, especially when there are many of them flying about.
That's right. Well, today we have something very special. We have some pictures that Linda and her husband took while they were on Komodo Island at this national park. And then we'll join Michelle in the language lab.
OK， 接下来我们看的是 lumber 这个动词。我们学过 lumber 当名词是指木材，但在这里是当动词，意思是指缓慢的移动。例如 ，the lumbering truck slowed down the traffic。这部缓慢前进的卡车让交通变缓慢了。 或者是 The elephant slumbered across the plain in herds， 大象成群缓慢地越过平原。所以我们看的是 raucous 这个形容词 ，raucous 是指刺耳的、沙哑的或者是喧闹的。例如 ，You can hear the raucous cries of seabirds even from a long distance， 即使在很远之处，你都可以听见海鸟吵杂的叫声。或者是 Sudden raucous laughter woke me up in the middle of the night， 在晚上一阵突如其来的笑声把我吵醒了。And now back to our lesson.
Well, we've definitely learned about some interesting scenery and interesting animals in this lesson today. And we, of course, talked all about Komodo dragons yesterday. I am curious how you would feel being up close to a Komodo dragon. Would you like that experience, Carolyn?
Well, I think that if I went with a group of people and had a good guide and we all followed these very clear rules, then I would love to go and see Komodo dragons in the wild. What about you, Gabe?
Yeah, I think so too. I would definitely want to have a guide there who knew what he was doing and who understood these creatures. Because, as you learned yesterday, if you even have any kind of blood on you, if you have a cut or something, maybe the Komodo dragons can smell that. They can smell the scent of blood for a far distance, a long distance away. So be careful if you are going to visit and see these Komodo dragons. Well, we do hope that you come back next time and learn more about Linda and her husband's experiences beyond Bali. Next time, here on Studio Classroom. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
I am so proud to have you in my life, a good friend, last a lifetime.
I lost a patient this week. He was too healthy and too young to die. But he did. Sometimes I don't understand life. I almost never understand death.
Yes, I took a wrong turn somewhere along the way. But the Bible said, seek and you
Being a good doctor is about a whole lot more than just knowing medicine.
I can't believe you do all this with a complete stranger.
Then she turned to fear when I finally found my way back home his way. 贵是这地大能赐我生命，主耶稣，我夫妇敬拜你。宝贵是家的救恩，是你所立的约，你的爱。
接下来所收看的是健康新主流。